to another Warhammer 40,000 guest battle report brought to you by the Legion Wargaming. Today we have Jordan, who has come all the way down from Glasgow in Scotland, and we decided a journey of that magnitude deserved a game of that magnitude. So we are doing a 10,000 point apocalypse game. It is Space Wolves versus Tau and Eldar. This should be a good one. Let's take a look at the armies. This 10,000 point combined Tau and Eldar list is Battleforged and consists of roughly 7,500 points of Tau and 2,500 points of Eldar. The Tau have brought along 2 combined arms detachments and the dreaded Hunter contingent. The first combined arms detachment is led by our old friend Commander Rely, and he is commanding the experimental battlesuit detachment. We have an XV-109 Yavara, 2 XV-107 Ravanas, and the dreaded form of the Taunar Supremacy armour. He's also got 2 squadrons of Remora stealth drones, 1 of 4 and 1 of 5, and 2 strike teams, each of 5 fire warriors. The second combined arms detachment is led by Aoun Shi, and he has his bodyguard of the day, it's Dark Strider. They've brought along 2 fire warrior teams in Devilfish with smart missile systems, a squadron of 4 Tetras, and the support of the aircast in the form of 2 Barracuda air superiority fighters and an AX-10 Tiger Shark. These are the 2 combined arms detachments, and they contain some of the rarer units that the Tau have access to. The main body of the Tau force is the Hunter contingent, and as its core formation it has a Hunter cadre. Led by a commander, he has a flamer and a drone controller, and in his Hunter cadre he has 3 teams, each of 8 fire warriors. They will be led by the cadre Fireblade. He's also got 3 teams of Pathfinders, 2 XV-88 broadside teams, each of 2 suits. They have high yield missile pods, and each team also has 2 missile drones, a hammerhead with smart missile system and an ion cannon, and a Riptide. He's got an ion accelerator, fusion blasters and stimulant injectors. And as well as this core formation, there are some other formations making up the full Hunter contingent detachment. The first and smallest is a drone network of 9 gun drones. They're going to be joined by the commander himself. Then we have an optimised stealth cadre led by a Ghostkeel. He's got a cyclic ion raker, fusion blasters and stimulant injectors, and this formation also contains 2 teams, each of 4 stealth suits. They each have a homing beacon and a fusion blaster. We have a retaliation cadre led by the commander with all the gadgets. He is in an Iridium battlesuit. He has the command and control node, the multi-spectrum sensor suite, and the PureTide engram neurochip, and he will be using those to make the fire of his cadre devastating, no doubt. We have 3 teams, each of 2 crisis suits, and each suit in every team has 2 plasma rifles and 1 fusion blaster. There is also an XV-88 broadside team of 3 suits. They all have twin-linked heavy rail rifles. 2 of them have plasma rifles and 1 has a smart missile system. And the final unit in this retaliation cadre is an XV-104 Riptide with an ion accelerator, fusion blasters and stimulant injectors. And to round off this contingent, we have one more formation. It is the Armoured Interdiction cadre, consisting of a Skyray and 3 hammerheads. Each has a railgun, and they all have sub-munitions as well. That is the Tau, part of this huge army, and they have also brought along their old allies. We often see these together on this channel. It's the Eldar of Craftworld Eandon. They have a combined arms detachment led by a Spirit Seer, and he has as troops 2 units, each of 10 Guardians led by Warlocks. One has a Star Cannon and the other has a Shuriken Cannon. The final troops choice is a squad of 6-star Avengers. They're led by an Exarch, and this being Craftworlds Anden, the dead do not rest easy. They are along for this battle as well. We have 2 squads each of 5 Wraithguard and the formidable form of the Anden Wraithlord. He has a missile launcher, a Bright Lance and Flamers, and the Eldar have brought along some armoured support. This detachment has a Wave Serpent with twin link Bright Lances and a Shuriken Cannon, a Falcon with a scatter laser to go with its pulse laser, a squadron of 2 more Falcons, they both have Star Cannon to go with their pulse lasers, and a squadron of 3 Vipers, they all have Star Cannon. That is the combined arms detachment, and the Eldar have also enlisted the help of their dreaded Aspect Warriors. We have 2 Aspect Host formations. The first has ballistic skill 5 and consists of a squad of 6 Fire Dragons with an Exarch, a squad of 6-star Avengers with an Exarch, and a squad of 5 Dark Reapers with an Exarch. And the other Aspect Host, they have weapon skill 5, and they have brought along 6 Howling Banshees led by an Exarch with an Executioner. They're mounted in a Wave Serpent with twin link Bright Lances. There's another Wave Serpent with twin link Bright Lances, and it will be carrying a squad of 6 Striking Scorpions. They have an Exarch with a Scorpion's Claw. And the final Aspect Warrior unit in this army is a squad of 6 Shining Spears. They have an Exarch with a Star Lance. And that rounds off 10,000 points. This army is very similar to the one that fought off the Raven Guard and the Grey Knights in another 10,000 point game. Will they be able to withstand the onslaught of the Emperor's Wolves? Let's take a look at what the Space Wolves have brought along. This 10,000 point Space Wolf list is fully battle forged and is looking very, very formidable. If we start all the way down this end, Jordan, what we got?
So we've got the remnants of the Astra Militarum. So we've got a Baneblade and 3 Lehman Russ battle tanks. That's what's left of the war-torn planet.
So after the Tau last time,
yeah.
That's what we like to hear.
We've got a Predator Assassin Squadron at the back.
Yep.
And then I've got an Iron Wolves formation, which is led by the Land Raider and the squad of Terminators there.
Right. Are these all sort of Grey Hunters and
yeah, so
Terminators all mechanised?
I've got 4 Razorbacks with a 5-man Grey Hunter squad in each, and 1 lone Razorback.
Yep.
And I've also got a Storm Wolf in the back with 2 5-man squads of Bloodclaws.
Yep.
And a squadron of land speeders as well.
Great.
That formation gives me 3 weapon upgrades.
Awesome. Looks like we've got some more stragglers here.
Yep, so again the last of the defence from the Space Marines, just a random squads of Assault Marines with jump packs and 2 tactical squads, and a Storm Talon as well.
Great. What chapter tactics are these guys using?
These are using Mantis Warrior.
Okay. Something a bit different.
Yeah.
Cool. And looks like we've got an Orbital Assault coming. Just Ragnar Blackmane and his company. What did you say these lords were called at the front there?
So we've got Ragnar Blackmane leading the Blackmane's formation,
yeah.
And we've also got a Logan Grimner's War Council formation, which is my Wolf Lord, which is all about the Slayer.
Great, and then Ragnar's entire company deploying by drop pod.
Yep.
Okay, I'm not quite sure how we'll be dealing with them. I suspect not very easily. And then we've got the Thunderwolves.
Yep, so I've got a Thunderwolf Wolf Pack formation. I think it's 20 or 25 wolves and 2 5-man squads of Thunderwolves.
No worries. Formidable. And some dreadnoughts.
Yep, so we've got Bjorn the Fell-Handed, and then he's followed up by 4 dreadnoughts.
They look very cool. I say all a mix of weaponry.
Yes, so two twin-linked las cannons, and we've got 2 multi-melters.
Great. So we've got some more Terminators over here.
Yep, so that is Arjax formation, all tooled up with Thunder Hammers and Storm Shields, and then we've got another Land Raider Terminator squad as well.
Great. Are these both Crusaders?
Yep, they are, yeah.
Great. And some Longfangs lurking about. Is that right? Where did I see them? All the way over here on the barricades. How many squads of Longfangs have we got in total in this force, Jordan?
I think we've got 6.
Right. There's some long range firepower incoming.
Yep.
And the 2 big boys. What's that? Knight Errant?
A Knight Errant, I think, and a Knight Warden as well.
And a Knight Warden. Right. These are the 10,000 points of Space Wolves and their allies. We think they're very formidable. Will it be enough to take on the might of the Tau and Eldar coalition? Let's see. Moving into deployment. And the armies have deployed, and for this Apocalypse game we are using Vanguard strike deployment with the Tau and Eldar taking a diagonal deployment from the far table edge, and the Space Wolves with their Imperial Guard and Space Marine allies deploying opposite on this near edge. We are playing a simple game today. The victory conditions are seize the objectives. We have 3. We have 1 placed over here in the Tau and Eldar deployment zone. 1, what seems like a very long way, all the way in the middle of the table between the 2 armies, and 1 all the way down in the Space Wolf and Imperium deployment zone. So those are the only victory conditions. Whoever controls the most objectives at the end of this game will be the victor. And the armies, they're already closing in on the objectives. The Space Wolves have deployed a huge amount of strength on their far left flank. We have Arjack, his Terminators, in their Land Raider, and 2 more squads of Terminators as well. They are supported by some Assault Marines, a Dreadnought with a good field of fire, and, crucially, the 2 Knights. It looks like the Imperial forces are going to try to hammer their way through to the Tau and Eldar home objective. We have a lot of elements of the Iron Wolf company here in the centre. Razorbacks full of Grey Hunters, and the Space Wolves have set up a formidable firebase with their long fangs and more Space Marines from various chapters. They are already very close to the central objective. And all the way down on the Space Wolf and Imperium right flank we have the Imperial Guard heavy armour, the Baneblade, and 3 Leman Russes. They have a lot of firepower guarding their home objective, and also some more Grey Hunters and some more Space Marines as well. So it seems like the Space Wolves and their allies have got a lot of potential for seizing these objectives, but they also have Ragnar Blackmane and his entire company embarking into their drop pods. They have some flyers to come on as well, and that could be a devastating blow to the Tau and Eldar plans. The Tau and Eldar, they have deployed in a firing line. The Tau are setting up with a great field of fire over this side of the battlefield. We have a lot of battle suits, 2 XV-107s and XV-109, the armoured interdiction cadre, and moving down the line we have the commander, and he is overseeing the rest of the hunter cadre, all the fire warriors, 2 XV-88 broadside teams, and the formidable sight of the Taunar Supremacy armour. Continuing, we have a Riptide and 2 more fire warrior squads in their Devilfish Coming over to the Tau far left flank, we have the optimised stealth cadre and some Dark Reapers. They have also come down this far end of the line, and you can't quite see them behind this building, but the Tetras are also there ready to move out and provide some marker light hits. There's a lot of marker lights in this force. All of the Pathfinders have advanced in front of the Fire Warrior line. Meanwhile, the Tau Supreme Commander, Commander Alai, is over on the Tau's far right, and he has linked up with the Eldar. The Tau are relying on their allies to hold the home objective. This building has been occupied by 2 squads of Yandan Guardians and a squad of Wraith Guard. They are supported by a Viper Squadron, some Dire Avengers in a Falcon, some more Dire Avengers in a Falcon, and the Fire Dragons in their Falcon. And all the way on the far right, it looks like the Eldar are attempting to flank the Space Wolf attack. We have 2 Wave Serpents containing Banshees and Scorpions, and another Wave Serpent containing the Spirit Seer, some Wraith Guard, and all the way on the far right, the Yandan Wraith Lord as well. So, it's a formidable line. The Space Wolves have a lot in Deep Strike Reserve, but the Tau also have the Retaliation Cadre and their flyers in reserve. The Eldar are also expecting some Shining Spears to arrive. This is already looking like an epic clash. The Space Wolves deployed first, so unless the Tau and the Eldar can seize the initiative, we go into Space Wolves turn 1. And following the Tau and Eldar failing to seize the initiative, the Space Wolves have struck. Ragnar Blackmane's entire company has arrived by drop pod, and they have deployed with pinpoint accuracy. The Blackmane himself has come down in his drop pod in the centre, and he is with Najal Stormcaller as well, and some Blood Claws. They are right in the centre of the Tau line. They're supported by another squad of Blood Claws in their drop pod. Meanwhile, the Wolf Guard and the Grey Hunters, they are heading straight for the heart of the Tau fire line. They have all come down, and they have a lot of combi melters, melter guns, plasma guns. It looks like there is going to be a hail of fire unleashed on the Tau battle suits in this section of their line. Another squad has come down very bravely in their drop pod to the rear of the Eldar position, and all the way down the other end, it looks like another squad has come down to take on the optimised stealth cadre. Oh, and of course we have yet another squad as well, come down with their melters to take on a hammerhead. This really has put the Tau under huge pressure right at the start of the game. And meanwhile, the rest of the Space Wolf line begins to rumble forwards. Arjak, his Terminators, and some more Terminators. They've all come crashing through these ruined buildings in their Land Raiders. They're supported by an assault squad, and of course the 2 Knights are striding forwards. Some of the Iron Wolves are moving up in their Razorbacks. They are preparing to give fire. They've only moved 6 inches, and in support of Ragnar we have some brothers from another chapter. They have leapt forward with their jump packs. Meanwhile, the Longfangs have mostly held position, although the Dreadnought has stomped forward, and another squad from another chapter has climbed this landing pad. Imperial Guard heavy armour, they are happy. They're overlooking this objective, and they have a great field of fire, and they have a lot of fire to give. And some of the Grey Hunters to the rear of this gantry have shuffled. The Longfangs have held position, and some of the Space Marines in this broken ground have moved forward, although this squad did lose 2 Marines to dangerous terrain checks. So aggressive, very, very aggressive opening moves from the Space Wolves, especially from Ragnar Blackmane. Will the Tau and the Eldar be able to resist this onslaught? We shall see, but first we have Space Wolves Psychic Phase Turn 1. End of Space Wolves Psychic Phase Turn 1, and with 11 dice, both Najal Stormcaller and the other Rune Priest that has emerged from Ragnar's drop pod attempted to take on the Pathfinders. Najal managed to electrify one with living lightning, but the Rune Priest was foiled as somehow the Tau managed to muster up enough will to deny him in his attempt. So, one casualty inflicted so far. We think there's going to be quite a few more going into Space Wolves shooting phase turn 1. End of Space Wolves shooting phase turn 1, and as we expected, a hurricane of fire erupted from the Space Marine lines, spearheaded by Ragnar Blackmane's company. All of his Grey Hunters here opened fire with their combi melters, their bolt guns and their plasma guns, and they managed to deal a few wounds on this XV-107. I say this XV-107, it is no longer there, as supporting fire came in from the rest of the Space Wolf line over this side, including the Iron Wolves in their Razorbacks, and the battle suit fell, but the Grey Hunters did manage to take out one XV-88 broadside team with their massed fire, and the other XV-107 has been reduced to 2 wounds as well. He took a lot of hits from the Grey Hunters and the supporting line. Meanwhile, all the way over on their own, this squad managed to gun down a few Guardians, but the Eldar are standing firm, and the Eldar are pretty much unscathed, although one Wraith Guard was shot down by these sneaky Raven Guard snipers that have somehow managed to creep into this Space Wolf army. In the centre, perhaps the best shot of the phase came all the way from the Imperial Guard Baneblade. With its Baneblade battle cannon, it landed right on top of the commander of the Hunter Cadre. It blew him to bits, along with several of his drones and many fire warriors at the foot of the watchtower, and more were taken down by shooting coming from the Long Fangs. And as well as the fire warriors, there is only one XV-88 broadside left, as well as the Lehman Russes from right down the far end added their battle cannon fire, but the last broadside he has held firm. Meanwhile, these Pathfinders, they took a couple more casualties from the Blood Claws and the other squad of Blood Claws supporting Ragnar himself, but not too much damage in this part of the line until we get to the Hammerhead on this rocky outcrop, which was damaged quite badly by these Grey Hunters with their combi melters, and then finished off by these Long Fangs with their las cannon. And the Long Fangs weren't finished there. They used split fire, and they managed to blow another Devilfish to pieces as well. 2 fire warriors that spilled out were gunned down by more fire from the Baneblade. So there is a gap in the Tau armour line here now. The Blood Claws that came down to try to take on the optimised Stealth Cadre were not very successful, but the Ghost Keel has lost one of its supporting drones to yet more fire from Space Wolf Longfangs. So there has been quite a lot of damage inflicted on the Tau. They have weathered a lot of fire. Has it been enough? They've lost the commander of their Hunter Cadre, they've lost a couple of tanks and some key battle suits. Have the Space Wolves done enough? With no assaults, that brings Space Wolves turn 1 to a close, and we go into Tau and Eldar turn 1. End of Tau and Eldar movement phase turn 1, and they have developed a plan, and the plan is the standard Tau response, which is hose the enemy with fire, but they have had some tricky target selection to deal with. In the centre, the 107 and the 109 are standing proud on this rocky outcrop. They are preparing to unleash their weaponry, and they are supported by the Eldar infantry. One squad of Guardians is moving forward, the Vipers have come over, and one squad of Dire Avengers have also deployed from their Wave Serpent. The Tau really need to deal with Ragnar's company. They cannot allow them to stay so close to their firing line. The armoured interdiction cadre, they have held position. They have a huge range and plenty of targets. Meanwhile, the rest of the Eldar have commenced their flanking grav attack. All of their Wave Serpents and Falcons are moving up. They're going to give fire with their Bright Lances, but unfortunately the Scorpion's Wave Serpent has managed to immobilise itself, so they have deployed. They are going to join their fire with some Guardians, and the Wraith Guard on the first floor of this ruined building to deal with the interloping Space Marines over to their rear this side. Meanwhile, Shi has realised that the Imperial Commander has dropped right in front of him, and he has a lot of Fire Warriors from the Hunter Cadre. He and the Fireblade, they are preparing to order a storm of fire on Ragnar Blackmane. The Supremacy Suit is standing tall in the centre, still picking targets. Over on this flank we have another squad of Fire Warriors that have deployed from their Devilfish. They are going to join the squad whose Devilfish has blown up to fire on these Grey Hunters, and the Riptide, he may add his fire against Ragnar, or he may just try to thin out some of the many other squads of Space Wolves that are right in front of the Tau line. Meanwhile, the optimised Stealth Cadre is moving through these ruins. They are going to summon up a wall of mirrors to try to deal with some of the Imperial Guard armour, but one squad did lose its fusion blaster as they tried to jetpack their way through these ruins. Finally, the Dark Reapers, they have got some long fangs in their sights, and the Tetras, they have just moved out from behind this building. They're not sure what they're doing at the current time. So the Tau, they are renowned for their firepower. This could be a very, very destructive turn. But first, we have a Psychic phase. There's a couple of Eldar Psykers, so we go into Tau and Eldar Psychic phase, turn 1. End of Tau and Eldar Psychic phase, turn 1, and with the Spirit Seer still embarked on his Wave Serpent, it fell to the Warlocks. 2. Summon up Conceal on both of their squads. This Warlock managed to get it off successfully, but the Space Wolves denied it on the second squad. So a quick Psychic phase, not much happening. We're expecting a lot to happen going into Tau and Eldar shooting phase, turn 1. End of Tau and Eldar shooting phase, turn 1, and a mixed phase for the Alien Alliance. The two Knights and all of the units in between, they disappeared in explosions as they were targeted by the Pulse Ion Driver from the Supremacy Suit and the 3 Hammerheads of the Interdiction Cadre and the XV-107, as well as Commander Rely himself. But although the Dreadnought was blown to pieces, one Razorback was also blown to pieces and another one was wrecked. The two Knights remain standing. That is very disappointing from the Tau's perspective. Although one has lost a single hull point, the other has been reduced to a single hull point. Still, the Tau really hope to see one of them go down. They even, in desperation, added fire from all over the field, including the rapidly approaching Eldar Grav vehicles. They couldn't do much more, unfortunately, although long-range shots from the Wraith Lord did manage to knock 2 hull points off of the rear Land Raider. Meanwhile, closer into the line, the Tau concentrated on dealing with Ragnar's company. But again, although many Space Marines went down, there are still quite a few remaining. There is one Longfang remaining over here. He was targeted by the Scorpions and the Wraith Guard and the Guardians, and most of his squad went down. There's only him left. These Guardians and the Dire Avengers, they managed to cut down one squad of Grey Hunters here, and more were also shot down by the Vipers. Then the XV-109 unleashed its deadly phased plasma flamer and incinerated an entire squad. But these two squads over here, although they took fire from the gun drones and the Fire Warriors, the one remaining broadside, they are still looking quite strong. So not too bad for the Space Wolves over this side of the battlefield, but it's in the centre they have suffered their biggest loss. Ragnar Blackmane, Najal Stormcaller and the rest of Logan Grimnar's War Council are no more, with 2 words which were volley fire. The Cadre Fireblade and all of the Fire Warriors from the Hunter Cadre unleashed a ridiculous amount of pulse fire into them, and all of the Space Wolf heroes have gone down, so that is pleasing to the Tau and the Eldar. A few Bloodclaws from this squad were shot down by the other weapon systems on the Supremacy armour, but again disappointment as this squad was targeted by Fire Warriors and the Devilfish. They only lost a couple of Marines. The Dark Reapers, they managed to cut down some las cannon wielding longfangs as the Tetras move flat out and buzz through these trees, and the optimised stealth cadre open fire, executing their plan to deal with the Imperial armour. One stealth team managed to take out one Leman Russ, another stealth team managed to take 2 hull points off another Leman Russ and immobilise it, but it can still fire, and the Ghost Keel cut down 3 blood claws that emerged from their drop pod in this ruined building. So a lot of Space Wolves have gone down, more than 50 in fact, and that includes Ragnar Blackmane, the Jarl Stormcaller, their Rune Priest. But the Tau really wanted to see one of the Imperial Knights go down as well. That brings the Tau and Eldar turn 1 to a close. There are no jetpack moves or assaults. This game is finely balanced. Let's see what the Space Wolves can do as more of their reserves arrive going into Space Wolves turn 2. End of Space Wolves movement phase turn 2, and the big news down this end of the battlefield is the arrival of all of the Thunder Wolves and their packs of wolves that are running alongside. They are coming in behind the Eldar, swarming through this abandoned Imperial base. This could be tricky for the Eldar, and of course the Stormwolf Flyer containing the Blood Claws has come on, and he may well have his eye on the objective nestled at the foot of this building. Meanwhile, the Land Raiders have begun to move, although the one at the rear managed to immobilise itself, so its cargo of Terminators have deployed. Ragnar's company, they have by and large held position. They are going to give as much fire as possible into the line. They're continuing with their mission objectives. The 2 Land Raiders here, they're moving forwards, are Jack and his Terminators are in the League Land Raiders, some more Terminators in the one moving up behind, and they look like they are going to lance straight into the centre of the Tau line, where Bjorn has arrived in his drop pod, as has another Dreadnought. They have moved very bravely straight into the centre of the line. The Iron Wolves are moving up, and they are supported by the 2 Imperial Knights. They're still standing, although the one on the right is quite badly damaged. The assault troops in the centre, they have held position. They know they can leap on to the central objective whenever they like, and the Long Fangs have also held position. They are giving fire under the direction of Ulrich the Slayer. The Dreadnought has stomped back, doubtless disturbed by the Tetras zipping between this part of the Imperial line, and the tactical squad can now give fire from this great position on the landing pad with their las cannon. They have not moved, nor have the couple of surviving Long Fangs. The Imperial Guard armour have held position. They are going to continue to hurl high explosive shells at the Tau, and the Grey Hunters, they continue to move forward. They are doing a great job of protecting their home objective at the current time. And we've got the Long Fangs on the gantry. They haven't moved. They are still going to be giving fire. We have a couple of Blood Claws still in here. Maybe they can cause a problem for the optimised stealth cadre. These Grey Hunters, they're going to give fire as well, and there's even still a couple of Blood Claws. They witnessed firsthand the death of their Wolf Lord. What will they make of that? So the Space Wolves are continuing to be aggressive as usual. We have no psychic phase for them this turn, as both Najal Stormcaller and the Rune Priest were cut down by the Fire Warriors of the Hunter Cadre. So we go straight into Space Wolves shooting phase turn 2. End of Space Wolves shooting phase turn 2, and much like the Tau's first shooting phase, this was a little disappointing from the Space Wolves. The Stormwolf Flyer came on and unloaded its weaponry into the Guardians sheltering at the bottom of this building, but only managed to take out 2 of them. Even worse, the Knight Errant decided to unleash its thermal cannon on this squad, but they were excellent with their cover saves and they only lost 1 Guardian, so very disappointing. Better from the Raven Guard scouts, they sniped down another 2 Wraith Guard who are on the first floor of this building. But not too much damage over this side. The Grey Hunters, they unleashed their weaponry and gunned down all of the Pathfinders, so the Tau army now find themselves lacking in Marker Lights. But other than that, not much happened until the Iron Wolves opened fire. With their twin las cannon they finally managed to take out the last XV-107 battlesuit, so that is a relief for the Space Wolves. The Knight Paladin had a disastrous volley with his rapid fire battle cannon. He landed it in the heart of the Hunter cadre, but one of the shots scattered and actually damaged one of the Space Wolf dreadnoughts, and to rub salt into the wound, the shot that was accurate only took out a single fire warrior. The dreadnoughts were enraged. Both Bjorn and his comrade, they unleashed their heavy flamers and they completely incinerated one squad of fire warriors. But it really was a bit of a haphazard effort this turn. These two Land Raiders, they have moved flat out. They look like they are desperate to get to grips with the centre of the Tau line. And over this side, the Longfangs did not fare much better. They unleashed their weaponry with very little effect on the Tau. These tactical marines, the Dreadnought and these two remaining Longfangs, they fared better. They managed to shoot down two of the Tetras, even though the Tetras had a 3-up jink with their disruption pods, and the Imperial Guard armour was likewise quite unsuccessful. The Baneblade cannon targeted the heart of the Hunter cadre as well, but only took out a couple of fire warriors, some more good cover saves, and the Lehman Russes had pretty much no effect as they lobbed their shells into the centre. Very inaccurate fire from the Guard. All of the Grey Hunters and the Longfangs over this side, they tried to take out the stealth suits that are approaching, and they managed to shoot down a couple despite the 2+ cover save, but there's still plenty of stealth suits here. The Ghost Keel is still there as well. So quite a disappointing round of firing from the Space Wolves. The Tau breathe a sigh of relief, but that could be short-lived as we go into Space Wolves Assault Phase Turn 2, and we think the Thunder Wolves that have just arrived are going to make their presence felt straight away. Let's see Space Wolves Assault Phase Turn 2. End of Space Wolves Assault Phase Turn 2, and another very disappointing phase from the Space Wolves, although the nearest squad of Thunderwolf cavalry and their wolves easily tore the Wraith Lord down. He did manage to incinerate 4 wolves with his flamers as they charged in. But the disappointing part over here was that the wolves failed their charge against the rear of the Wave Serpent, and they blocked the charge path of the newly arrived Thunderwolves. So very disappointing. The only other combat was all the way down the other end of this huge battlefield, where the 2 remaining Bloodclaws charged in to 3 stealth suits. The stealth suits managed to gun down 1 Bloodclaw as they charged, but the remaining Bloodclaw, although he has not killed any of the Tau, has remained locked in combat with them. He will not go down either, so he has tied up a valuable Tau unit there. Good job from him. And that brings Space Wolves Turn 2 to a close. It's been a disappointing turn for them. Let's see what the Tau do going into Tau and Eldar Turn 2. End of Tau and Eldar movement phase Turn 2, and they have been heavily reinforced on their left flank. The aircast have arrived in force. The Remora stealth drones, 2 squadrons of them, are strafing in over these industrial buildings, try to clear the Space Wolves out. And as the Tiger Shark swoops overhead, the retaliation cadre have dropped from the skies. They've been guided in by the homing beacons on the Tetras and on the stealth suits, and they have all got their sights fixed on the Baneblade. If the Tau can take out the Imperial heavy armour on this flank, they may have a good chance of holding this objective. Meanwhile, in the centre, the remaining Fire Warriors have been ordered by the Cadre Fireblade, Darkstrider and Owen-Shi to deal with the remaining Grey Hunters that are still too close for comfort. The Riptide is moving. He may well try to deal with Bjorn the Fell-Handed, and the Taunar armour has once again held position. There's a lot closing in on this part of the Tau line, but the Tau have been reinforced with a Barracuda as well. The XV-109 has jumped down. He is hoping that the Taunar suit can crack open these Land Raiders, and then he can deal with their contents with his deadly weaponry. The Armoured Interdiction Cadre has once again held position. They have lots of targets they can help against the Land Raiders, or perhaps have another attempt at dealing with the 2 Imperial Knights. And over on the far right flank, the Eldar, they have sprung into action. They need to deal with the Thunderwolves, and the Spirit Seer has led his Wraith Guard out of this Wave Serpent with their deadly Wraith Cannon. The Howling Banshees have deployed from their Wave Serpent, and as their 2 Falcons speed off to give fire against the Terminators, a squad of Dire Avengers and a squad of Fire Dragons are also going to try to give fire. Can the Thunderwolves with their Storm Shield survive? Probably. We will see. The Scorpions, they tried to move towards the other squad of Thunderwolves but had a dreadful move through cover roll, and the Ugandan Guardians are moving up in support along with the Ugandan Falcon. Meanwhile, the rest of the Eldar, the other squad of Guardians and the Dire Avengers, they are moving to deal with the remnants of Ragnar's company. The Vipers, they are looking for any target that may be suitable for them. So, a lot going on during Tau and Eldar turn 2. Let's see what happens, but first we have a psychic phase. Tau and Eldar psychic phase turn 2. End of Tau and Eldar psychic phase turn 2, and the newly disembarked Spirit Seer used all of the Eldar's dice. He started off by successfully casting invisibility on himself and his squad of Wraith Guard, although he did have an attack of Perils of the Warp and he has lost a wound, but he followed up with a Psychic Shriek which has caused 1 wound on this squad of Thunderwolf Cavalry. So once again the psychic phase, not a lot going on. Let's see what happens in Tau and Eldar shooting phase turn 2. End of Tau and Eldar shooting phase turn 2, and it has been a much more effective shooting phase than the one they had in their first turn. The phase opened with the Eldar concentrating their firepower onto the Thunderwolves. They have managed to shoot down 3 from this squad, but it did take the fire of 2 Wave Serpents, the Wraith Guard, the Banshees, 1 squad of Dire Avengers, 1 squad of Fire Dragons. These Thunderwolves really are extremely tough with their Storm Shields. Meanwhile, the Falcons did much better, these 2, and the swivelling turret on the Ugandan Falcon all the way over to the rear. They took out all of the Terminators that had disembarked from their immobilised Land Raider. Meanwhile, the Wraith Guard and the few Guardians remaining in this building, they shot down the last Long Fang. Their drop pod is still there, but now it's unmanned. These Dire Avengers and the Guardians, they focused their fire on the nearest squad of Grey Hunters and wiped them out. But the Armoured Interdiction Cadre, they were disappointing again. They targeted the Knight Errant. They only managed to strip 1 more hull point off. And despite taking a long range shot from the Riptide all the way over there, this Knight Paladin remains standing on 1 hull point. He just will not go down. That could be due in some part to the fact that the Supremacy armour realised that the Land Raiders containing the Terminators were getting a bit close, and he unloaded on them with his ion accelerators and his huge D weapon. He blew Arjak's Land Raider to bits with the D weapon, and Arjak and his Terminators came piling out, but they took huge amounts of fire from the XV-109 and from Fire Warriors, from drones. Arjak is the only one left standing, and he has 1 wound remaining. This Land Raider took another point of damage as the Supremacy suit continued with its barrage of fire. So the Tau, they're quite happy. That's 1 dangerous unit that has been neutralised, but Arjak, he's still standing. Maybe he will still do something. Meanwhile, the aircast were very disappointing. The Barracuda targeted the Long Fangs at the back of the Space Wolf line and did nothing. And the newly arrived Tiger Shark tried to target the invincible Knight Paladin with his huge primary weapon, but did nothing again. And to add insult to injury, all the rest of the Tiger Shark's weapons only managed to shoot down 1 of these red Space Marines. In the centre, Owen Shi, the Fireblade and Darkstrider, they are still trying to take out some Grey Hunters. They shot down a few more. They were joined in their fire by the few remaining fire warriors from the other side, but the 2 Bloodclaws here were shot down by the smart missile system from the Taunar suit. It was over on the Tau and Eldar left flank that the aliens appear to have made a breakthrough. The retaliation cadre, they all focused their fire on the Baneblade, but it also took the Ghost Keel joining in with Wall of Mirrors to finally take down the huge Imperial battle tank. But it is gone, and the Tau breathe a sigh of relief. They were getting rather sick of being pounded by the Baneblade cannon. Meanwhile, a lot of Space Marines fell. The Remora drones, they are excellent when they start strafing infantry. All the long fangs from the gantry were gunned down. 1 squad of Grey Hunters was also taken out, and the squad of Grey Hunters guarding this objective were cut down by a volley from the Dark Reapers. So the Tau, they're doing very well over this side of the field. It's very, very close in the centre and on this side as the Space Wolves get a lot closer. But still a much, much better phase than they had in turn 1. We have 1 ongoing assault all the way down this end, where 3 stealth suits are still struggling against a Bloodclaw. Going into Tau and Eldar assault phase, turn 2. End of Tau and Eldar assault phase, turn 2, and the retaliation cadre have used their jetpack moves to spread out. They are obviously under orders to secure this sector of the battlefield. Meanwhile, the Riptide has just hopped down from his position on top of that bunker, and that was it for jetpack moves. The only combat was between the lone Bloodclaw and the 3 remaining XV-25 stealth suits. Neither side is able to do any damage to the other. They remain locked, and that brings Tau and Eldar turn 2 to a close. It looks like the Tau are closing in on this objective. The objective in the centre, well, there's some assault troops here, but still belongs to anybody. We shall see. And down this end, once again, this objective is anybody's to claim. So it's a very close game. The Space Wolves took a real pasting in that last shooting phase. Let's see how they react going into Space Wolf turn 3. End of Space Wolf movement phase turn 3, and the Wolves have been bolstered by the arrival of their last reserves. Zooming onto the battlefield, we have a Storm Talon and a squadron of land speeders. It looks like they are preparing for a strafing run on the Eldar aspect hosts, and they are supported by the Predators of the Assassin squadron that have come rumbling on as well. Meanwhile, the Thunderwolves look like they're preparing to charge out from this ruined base against the Banshees and possibly this Wave Serpent as the Space Wolf Flyer zooms overhead. It is going to try to add its firepower onto the Eldar as well. Looks like the Eldar are in for a rough turn, especially as another drop pod has arrived containing a Dreadnought. He has a heavy flamer, and it looks like he is relishing the opportunity to wash it over all of these Eldar here. Meanwhile, the Space Wolf infantry is continuing to advance. We have Grey Hunters and some jump packers moving through these ruins, and the towering forms of the Imperial Knights are still stomping forwards. Terminators have deployed from this Land Raider, and it looks like they have their eyes on the XV-109, and so does Arjak as he clambers over the flaming wreckage of his Land Raider. He wants revenge against the Tau battlesuit. Meanwhile, the Iron Wolves are still in their Razorbacks. They have moved up and they are still giving fire with their las cannons, and it looks like these Marines from other chapters, they are just consolidating their hold on the central objective. Meanwhile, Bjorn and his brother Dreadnought, they are going to try to take on the Taunar Supremacy suit. Very much looking forward to seeing that. And over on this side of the field, this Dreadnought has come stomping through. He's got his eyes on the retaliation cadre, these Long Fangs, these Tactical Marines, and the fire base. With Ulrich the Slayer, they have all held position to give fire. It looks like there are very few Space Wolves over here. We have 2 Grey Hunters. They are still advancing upon the Tau. They've lost a lot of their brothers, but they are still going for it, and the few remaining Space Marines here, along with a couple of Leman Russes, they are still holding the line, desperately trying to keep the Tau off of this objective. Even these Space Marines have come down from the top of the blast door bunker. They are going to be advancing as well, and of course the last Blood Claw remains locked in combat. So the Space Wolf and Imperial Army is fully deployed now. Will it be enough? Let's see. There is no psychic phase, so we go straight into Space Wolf shooting phase, turn 3. End of Space Wolf shooting phase, turn 3, and it has been another disappointing shooting phase for the Space Wolves. The newly arrived Predator Assassin Squadron were dreadful. With their accuracy, they targeted the nearest Wave Serpent, but they only managed to do a single hull point, although it did jink. The newly arrived Land Speeder Squadron was much more impressive. They easily cut down all of the Dire Avengers with their assault cannons, and 2 Fire Dragons were also shot down by the newly arrived Storm Raven. The Stormwolf Flyer continued to target the Eldar occupying this building, taking out another Wraith Guard and a couple more Guardians, but the Eldar are hanging on by their fingernails. Meanwhile, the newly arrived Dreadnought washed its heavy flamer over the Dire Avengers and the other squad of Eandon Guardians, taking out a couple of Aspect Warriors. And the Guardians, they've lost a couple more members of their squad, including their Warlock. Meanwhile, the 2 Knights, who are still standing proud in this section of the line, they opened fire. Both the thermal cannon and the rapid fire battle cannon, they managed to land some good hits, but they were disappointed as they only managed to do 1 hull point to the Viper Squadron, 1 hull point to this Hammerhead, and the thermal cannon was very disappointing. It scattered on top of Rely and the other Hammerhead, but did no damage to either. So disappointment, and further disappointment came from the central part of the Space Wolf fire base, as the Long Fangs with the las cannons and the missile launchers, they targeted members of the retaliation cadre, and they did not have much effect, but the Leman Russ was much more effective, as it landed a battle cannon shell perfectly on 2 crisis suits and blew them to pieces. Meanwhile, a couple of broadsides have also been shot down by the forces still present on this flank, but it does look like there are very few Imperial units left over this side. So we think the next phase is going to be crucial. Bjorn and his fellow Dreadnought, they opened fire on the Supremacy armour, unsurprisingly doing no damage, but they intend to assault it. And we have a lot of Terminators and Arjak who are ready to assault the XV-109 in this part of the Tau line. So can the Space Wolves make up for a lacklustre shooting phase? Going into Space Wolves assault phase, turn 3. End of Space Wolf assault phase, turn 3, and this has been a much better phase for the Space Wolves, although it started very disappointingly as this Dreadnought attempted to charge the commander of the retaliation cadre. 4 crisis suits lifted their fusion blasters and blew him to bits on Overwatch. Meanwhile, the lone Bloodclaw, he's hacked down 1 XV-25 stealth suit. He's still going. They can't hurt him back, but they remain locked in combat. And much, much better news for the Space Wolves in the centre. The Wolf Guard, they charged into the drones. They've killed them all, although there is 1 drone left, but Arjak and the Terminators made it into the XV-109 and they tore the experimental battlesuit apart. So the Space Wolves have carved a big hole in the centre, but Bjorn was left frustrated. Despite his huge number of attacks, strength 10 and shred, he only managed 1 wound on the Supremacy suit, and in response the Supremacy suit gave him a punt with his massive foot and has taken a hull point in return. The other Dreadnought, which also made the charge, could not hurt the huge Tau suit. They remain locked. But down this end, it looks like the Thunderwolves are making good progress in hacking their way through the Aspect Warriors. 1 squad of Thunderwolves and their attached wolves made it into the Howling Banshees. The Banshees shot down 1 wolf on Overwatch and hacked another 3 apart with their power swords, but in return 4 Banshees were taken out by the Space Wolves. The Banshees have passed morale and they remain locked. The Fire Dragons were charged by another group of wolves. They incinerated one with Overwatch, took down another in assault, but then 3 more fire dragons were pulled down. The lone survivor, he has passed morale. They remain locked. And the Scorpions, they did very well with their Mandy blasters. They managed to take out 5 wolves, and that meant that the wolves did not get to attack, but unfortunately, although the Exarch managed to do a wound with his Scorpion's Claw, the rest of the Thunderwolf cavalry easily overwhelmed and slaughtered all of the striking Scorpions. So, the Space Wolves, they are making good ground here. They are approaching this objective. This game is still very tightly poised. The central objective is still up for grabs. It looks like the Tau are having the best of it up this end, so we do not know who is going to emerge triumphant. That brings Space Wolves turn 3 to a close, and we go into Tau and Eldar turn 3. End of Tau and Eldar movement phase turn 3, and we have seen some panic from the Eldar down this end of the battlefield. The Spirit Seer has re-embarked into his Wave Serpent, and he is moving away, and he is being followed by another empty Wave Serpent. It has left its cargo of Banshees to their fate. The Shining Spears have arrived, but they have flown into a world of difficulty. The Thunderwolves really have chewed through the Eldar. Down this end of the battlefield, these 2 Falcons have pulled back. They're holding that objective still. They're going to give fire against the land speeders, but this objective is in very real danger of being overrun. The Wraith Guard, the last few Guardians at the foot of this building, they're going to join their fire with the Eyandan Falcon to try and take out this Dreadnought. Meanwhile, the Dire Avengers and the other squad of Guardians are advancing into these ruins. They are just going to try to cut down as many Space Marines as they can. The Armoured Interdiction Cadre, they took a lot of fire last turn, and 2 of the tanks will be firing snapshots. There's only one that can fire at full ballistic skill, but they are still going to try to knock out some of these high value targets. Maybe the Imperial Knights, who just refuse to go down. Commander Rely is also going to join his fire. 2 Vipers have left their immobilised squadron mates. They are moving towards the side of the battlefield where there's a lot more friendly Tau presence. They are going to fire off some snapshots into the Terminators on their way. But it is looking very grim for the Xenos Coalition up this end. Meanwhile, the Barracuda, following the abject failure of its strafing run last turn, is going to once again try to take out the las cannon wielding Longfangs, and the XV-104 Riptide, it's been ordered to move in and take the objective in the centre. We just have these jump packers on it, but these 2 Razorbacks still contain Grey Hunters from the Iron Wolves, so very tricky. Bjorn the Fell-Handed has saved the lives of many, many of his brothers by locking the Supremacy armour in close assault along with the other Dreadnought. That is invaluable. The Tiger Shark has swung round, and it is going to bring its formidable firepower to bear to try to drive the forces of the Imperium back from the centre of the table, but does it have enough firepower? We are not sure. Meanwhile, the few remaining fire warriors of the Hunter Cadre with their Fireblade, with Unshi and with Darkstrider, they're still holding in the centre. They're going to try and gun down the last couple of Grey Hunters who just refuse to give in, and these fire warriors are also moving to add their firepower. But on this flank it is looking a lot better for the Tau. The Retaliation Cadre still has 4 Crisis Suits and their Crisis Commander, and they are moving to take out these Space Marines clustered around this landing pad, and the Longfangs. They are hoping that the Riptide, which has got Ripple Fire on its fusion blasters, can take out this Leman Russ. They're also hoping that the remains of the optimised Stealth Cadre, the Ghost Keel, and this XV-25 can take out the badly damaged Leman Russ, and they are relying on their Remora stealth drones to clear the rest of the Space Marines from this part of the battlefield. This squadron of 5 is going to try to take out these Grey Hunters, and the squadron of 4 has dropped into hover mode to take out these Space Marines, taking shelter against the blast doors. Meanwhile, as this Bloodclaw remains locked in combat with the XV-25's one XV-88 broadside has stomped down from the parapet to try to take him out himself. And the Dark Reapers, they are still standing firm. There are a few Space Marines still lurking in the cover of this gantry, and they are going to hopefully be cut down by a swarm of anti-personnel missiles. This battle is getting very close, very personal. Is there enough firepower left to swing it? Let's see. But first we have Tau and Eldar Psychic Phase Turn 3. End of Tau and Eldar Psychic Phase Turn 3, and with the spirits here re-embarked on his transport, the only Psyker still on the tabletop is the Warlock right at the bottom of this ruined building. He used all 5 of the Eldar's dice to cast Conceal on himself and his squad, but will that make a difference? Probably not. Let's see if more of a difference can be made in Tau and Eldar Shooting Phase Turn 3. End of Tau and Eldar Shooting Phase Turn 3, and the immobilised Wave Serpent did an extremely good job. It has discharged its shields and it managed to knock down 2 of the land speeders from this squadron. But the Wave Serpents were very disappointing once again. They targeted the Knights but had no effect. And it was beginning to look like yet again these Knights were not going to go down. But finally one has lost its last hull point as the 2 Falcons here swiveled their turrets round and took it down with a volley from their pulse lasers. But other than that, it was disappointing from the Eldar, as these Guardians at the base of this building and the Lone Wraith Guard failed to do any damage to the Dreadnought. The Yanden Falcon came to the rescue and took it out with a volley from behind. The Dire Avengers did not manage to shoot down any of the Marines moving through these ruins in front of them, but the Guardians, they shot down 1. It was enough for the last 3 Marines to decide to fall back. The Shining Spears have decided they want no part at all of the Thunderwolf cavalry, so they have used their Eldar Jetbike 36-inch move to come up next to the Spirit Seer's Wave Serpent. Looks like the Eldar are pulling back. They want some more support from the Tau. The Armoured Interdiction Cadre, even aided by Commander Reli's 2 marker lights, could not do any damage to the other Knight. It's still got 4 hull points remaining, and the Vipers firing snapshots had no effect on the Terminators, and the Skyray didn't have any effect either. So quite disappointing down this end. Perhaps the most disappointing was the Tiger Shark, which managed to hit this Knight for a second time with its main destroyer weapon, but for the second time in a row it rolled a 1 and did no damage. But it did manage to take out 2 of the Golden Assault Marines in the centre with its burst cannon, and another 2 were taken down by the rapidly approaching Riptide. In the centre, behind the form of the Tiger Shark, at long range, the Fireblade and Onshi ordered the last few remaining Fire Warriors to target these Black Assault Marines closing in on the objective. They only managed to shoot down 1, but it was very long range, and 1 Grey Hunter was shot down by these Fire Warriors firing in the gap between the rocky outcrop and this drop pod. But the survivor still refuses to fall back, and he even survived a volley from the Devilfish's smart missile system as well. Over on this side of the field, these 2 crisis suits were very disappointed, as despite having plenty of shots with their twin plasma rifles, they only took down the Longfang Sergeant, the last Longfang, with the las cannon. He is still standing firm, but the commander of the Retaliation Cadre, he ordered his 2 crisis suits to wipe the Marines off this landing pad, and they did so, making use of his array of gadgets. The 2 remaining Tetras added their fire to try and take out the last Longfang, but they had no effect. But at least the Riptide, using ripple fire and its ion accelerator, managed to blow up the last Lehman Russ on this side of the building, and the Lehman Russ over this side was taken down by the last surviving XV-25 stealth suit from this team. This squadron of 5 Remoras, they easily gunned down the 5 Grey Hunters that were next to this Lehman Russ. A volley of missiles from the Dark Reapers took out the 3 assault marines sheltering next to the gantry, and the other squadron of Remoras managed to shoot down all 5 marines that were taking cover by the blast doors. So the only marine left down here is the Bloodclaw. He is still locked in combat with 2 stealth suits, and we have a broadside suit moving in to help. Will that be enough to get rid of him? It's just him, and it's a very long way to the next Space Wolf, which is the Long Fang. It looks like the Tau are dominating this side of the battlefield, and conversely the Space Wolves still have an extremely strong presence. They have overwhelmed the Eldar down this end. We have a couple of ongoing assaults, the Banshees, the Lone Fire Dragon, and of course the Bloodclaw all the way up the other end, going into Tau and Eldar assault phase turn 3. End of Tau and Eldar assault phase turn 3, and the Thunderwolves are hacking their way through the Aspect Warriors. The Banshees are down, although they did take down the last Fenrisian Wolf. The Thunderwolves consolidate. Meanwhile, the last Fire Dragon was pulled down by a pack of 5 wolves that had him surrounded, so it looks like this objective is badly threatened now. The other combats were an ongoing one here with Bjorn and his brother Dreadnought against the Supremacy Suit. Bjorn did nothing this phase, but his brother Dreadnought came to the rescue and managed to do a wound to the Taunar armour. In response, 3 stomps went in at Bjorn, but none did anything. So the Taunar suit actually lost the combat, and he's down to 8 wounds. These Dreadnoughts really have done wonders for the Space Wolf cause. The Wolf Guard easily pulled down the last drone they were locked in combat with, and we had a couple of brief combats up the far end as well. 2 crisis suits charged the last Long Fang that they failed to kill with their plasma rifles, and they managed to take him down. And the charge of the broadside did not manage to finish off the last Bloodclaw, but the last Bloodclaw also could not do any damage, so he really is alone up this end now, and the battle remains close. The Tau have this objective. The centre one is not held currently. Technically the Falcon is holding this objective, but that's not going to last for much longer. Going into Space Wolves turn 4. End of Space Wolves movement phase turn 4, and they are closing in on this objective. The Thunderwolves, they have broken the cover of the military complex. They are charging straight at the Administratum building. The Stormwolf has dropped into hover mode and has disembarked a lot of Bloodclaws. It's looking like the Eldar are on the verge of being wiped out around this building, especially if we add the supporting fire of the Predator Assassin Squadron and the hovering Storm Talon. Meanwhile, the remaining Space Wolves of Ragnar's company are closing in on the Guardians and our Avengers in these ruins. They are supported by 1 land speeder, and of course the Raven Guard snipers are still in this building. They are looking to shoot down the final Wraith Guard. This objective may well be overrun. The Knight has continued its advance. It's going to bring its deadly thermal cannon to bear, and in the centre the Space Wolves are concentrating on swarming this central objective. 2 of the Iron Wolf squads have deployed from their Razorbacks, and they are running through this gully and over these barricades. They are joined by the remnants of 2 assault squads. It looks like the Space Marines are firmly in possession of this objective. Meanwhile, the Wolf Guard and the Wolf Guard Terminators, they are moving towards the centre as well, probably to give fire against the remnants of the Hunter Cadre. Meanwhile, Bjorn and his brother Dreadnought, they're still locked in combat. They are doing an incredibly valuable job keeping the Supremacy Suit from firing, and the Long Fangs, they have still held position with Ulrich the Slayer. They are picking their targets. Over this side of the battlefield there is no Space Wolf or Imperial presence. It is just the Bloodclaw still locked in combat with 2 stealth suits and a broadside. It looks like the Imperium have given up this objective, but they are in a very good position to take the centre objective and wipe out the Eldar and take the one at the foot of the Administratum building. The next phase could be very important. It is Space Wolves shooting phase, turn 4. End of Space Wolves shooting phase, turn 4, and the fire from both sides has become rather sporadic. The Predator Assassin Squadron, they managed to knock out the immobilised Wave Serpent behind these barricades on the edge of the ruined bunker complex, and the rest of the Imperial forces down this end also targeted the Eldar. The Storm Talon gunned down some of the Dire Avengers, and another one was taken out by a scattering thermal cannon shot. The Knight Errant was going for Commander Ally, but it scattered back and incinerated the Dire Avenger Exarch. The Stormwolf Flyer failed to make any impression on the Eandon Falcon other than to make it jink, and the Eldar in the centre, they are looking weak. One Dire Avenger left, one Guardian, because they were also hit by a hail of bolter fire from all the Grey Hunters pouring into the ruins in the middle. Firing was quite disappointing from the Terminators and the Wolf Guard. The Wolf Guard managed to shoot down one Fire Warrior from Onshi's squad, and the Terminators managed to shoot down one Fire Warrior. Here, there's only one left now behind these barricades. He's not going to hold them. Meanwhile, in the centre, a hail of fire erupted at the Riptide that is closing in on the central objective. Both the Iron Wolves, Razorbacks, fired their las cannon into him. So did these Long Fangs with their las cannon, and they were joined in their fire by the Land Raiders as well. They managed to do 2 wounds. Riptides, they are tough to take down, and the hail of bolter fire that erupted from the Grey Hunters and heavy bolter fire from the Long Fangs failed to make any impression at all. The Long Fangs down on the ground with missile launchers, they managed to take out both of the crisis suits that were taking cover behind these barricades on the landing pad. And that is about it. There is no Space Wolf presence down this end of the table. So the Wolves, they have swarmed this objective in the middle, and following the next phase, we think they are going to strongly hold this objective as well. The next phase is Space Wolves Assault Phase, turn 4. End of Space Wolves Assault Phase, turn 4, and the Thunderwolves have struck. This squad, they tore into the Falcons and easily tore them to pieces. One exploded and took out a Bloodclaw, but that was devastating. The other squad of Thunderwolves, along with some Fenrisian Wolves, charged the remaining Guardians, and the Guardians cut down 3 Fenrisian Wolves with Overwatch and another one in combat, but then the Thunderwolves easily destroyed all the rest of the Guardians. This objective now is firmly in Space Wolf hands. Arjak charged up this rocky rise, and he gleefully laid into this hammerhead with his mighty Thunder Hammer, destroying it in short order. Bjorn and his brother Dreadnought, they continue their struggle against the Taunar suit. They're doing well. They have wounded it again. It's on 7 wounds. In return, it managed to do 1 point of damage to the other Dreadnought. So both Bjorn and that Dreadnought are damaged, but I think they may hold the Taunar up for the entire game. And the only other combat, which has been going on for a long, long time, is still inconclusive. Neither the Bloodclaw nor the Tau battlesuits could do any damage. They remain locked. But the Wolves, especially the Thunderwolves, have shown how devastating they are. It seems very unlikely that the Tau and Eldar coalition are going to be able to reclaim this objective. Let's see what they can do going into Tau and Eldar, turn 4. End of Tau and Eldar movement phase, turn 4, and the Eldar are abandoning this objective. This Falcon is moving away. It jinked last turn as well, so it's just going to concentrate on getting as far away from the Thunderwolves as possible. The Shining Spears, the Spirit Seer inside his Wave Serpent, and another Wave Serpent following there are moving up the other flank as one Barracuda decides to conduct a strafing run on the victorious Space Wolves at this end of the battlefield. Commander Ally is still standing firm. He is worried at the Knight Errant approaching him. He still has 2 hammerheads from the armoured interdiction cadre, there is also the Sky Ray. The two Vipers, they are moving in. They are going to try to take out Space Marines in this canyon. They're holding the objectives as the Tiger Shark flies overhead. Can it do something with its D weapon finally? It's going to try once again against the Knight, while the rest of its weapons are going to fill this canyon with death, we hope. There is another Barracuda. The last Tower Reserve has arrived, and it is also looking to clear this objective, maybe target the Long Fangs. This Riptide has held position. He is just going to give fire. The Town R suit remains locked. Darkstrider and the Fireblade, they have joined with Onshi and the few remaining Fire Warriors. More Fire Warriors are spilling past this drop pod. They're going to try to shoot down the one Grey Hunter that is still unbelievably alive up here. And meanwhile, the rest of the Tau down this end of the battlefield, they're moving to the centre. The Commander and the two surviving Crisis suits from the Retaliation Cadre and the Riptide. He is Nova charged, giving him a 4d6 jetpack move, but really it is the Remoras that the Tau are counting on to thin out the Long Fangs and hopefully clear the objective as well at some point. The Devilfish has moved down in support of the few remaining Fire Warriors and the optimised Stealth Cadre, or rather one Stealth Suit and the Ghost Keel. They have been ordered to hold this objective just in case the Bloodclaw that is still locked in combat somehow manages to triumph. The Dark Reapers, they are not going to achieve an awful lot. But this battle is still on a knife edge. Let's see what happens. We have no Psychic phase this turn as the last Warlock is dead, and since the Spirit Seer is embarked on the Wave Serpent, we are going to move straight into Tau and Eldar. Shooting phase, turn 4. End of Tau and Eldar shooting phase, turn 4, and the exodus continues from this end of the table by the Eldar. This Falcon has moved flat out, so have these two Wave Serpents, the first containing the Spirit Seer, and the Jet Bikes have done another 36-inch move. They have zoomed in to see if they can help with the central objective. The Barracuda has strafed the Predator Assassin Squadron, managed to do 2 whole points of damage and stun the nearest Predator. But the rest of the fire, well, there's nothing down here really, so the Armoured Interdiction Cadre decided to target the Iron Wolves Razorbacks. They managed to destroy one, but the big news is the Tiger Shark managed to do 2 whole points of damage to this Knight Errant, and then Commander Rely took great pleasure in finishing it off with his special issue ammunition. This Viper managed to shoot down a Terminator, but it was in the centre that hell was unleashed. A lot of Space Marines have fallen. All of the black jump packers, all of the gold jump packers, one squad of Long Fangs, they were targeted by the newly arrived Barracuda and by the Fire Warriors from range, as well as the Riptide and the secondary weapons on the Tiger Shark. They took a lot of damage, and these Marines, they're still holding on. The Long Fangs with las cannons, they have been wiped out as once again the squadron of 5 Remora stealth drones has unleashed a bucket load of wounds. But the Long Fangs on the ground with the missile launchers, they were a lot more resilient. They managed to only lose 3 to fire from the Crisis suits and the other squadron of Remoras, so they have done very, very well. Meanwhile, the last Grey Hunter that was charging at Onshi has been taken out by a volley from the Devilfish's smart missile system. So it looks like both sides have ceded opposite ends of the battlefield to each other. The contest now is over the central objective. Whoever claims it will surely be victorious. Let's see what happens in Tau and Eldar Assault Phase, turn 4. End of Tau and Eldar Assault Phase, turn 4, and this Riptide has decided he does not want to be charged. He wants to try to attack the objective on his own terms. He has jetpacked back, and he is joined by the Riptide from the Retaliation Cadre. We have a wall of battlesuits and flyers. The Tau are looking to sweep in on the central objective. In the assaults, we had an eventful phase. Bjorn laid in to the Taunar Supremacy armour. He caused 3 wounds on it on his own, and the other Dreadnought caused another wound. It's only got 2 left, but the Taunar raised his massive foot and stomped down at last and has squashed Bjorn flat. So it is just the Dreadnought versus the Taunar. The Taunar has 2 wounds, the Dreadnought has 2 hull points. Will they remain locked? We shall see. And in the other combat, surprisingly enough, neither side could damage the other. The stealth suits, the broadside and the Bloodclaw are still hacking away at each other and achieving precisely nothing. The battle is still anyone's to win, going into Space Wolves turn 5. End of Space Wolves movement phase turn 5, and the Thunderwolves are continuing to rampage towards the Tau firing line. 2 Hammerheads and Rely are all that are left over here. Looks like the last Dire Avenger and the Guardian are not long for this world, as a squad of Grey Hunters and some more Assault Marines are moving in. There's a Land Speeder here as well. The Bloodclaws, they have all swarmed all over this objective. The Storm Talon moving in for support as well. Meanwhile, Arjak has decided he likes smashing these Tau grav tanks to bits. He is going for the Skyray. The Terminators, they're moving in to take the ground floor of the Watchtower building, and in the centre the Grey Hunters are just swarming onto the objective. Also, a Razorback has come crashing through this rocky gully. They are sitting right on top of it. The Wolf Guard are desperately climbing this landing pad, attempting to get close enough for a good run, so they're also holding it. The Space Wolves, they are determined not to let the Tau take this objective from them. But that is about it from the Space Wolves. The Longfangs have held position, and Ulrich the Slayer, he may well try to take on a Riptide. We shall see. Both sides have taken a real battering. They are low on combat effective units. Let's see what the Space Wolves can do. Going into Space Wolves shooting phase, turn 5. End of Space Wolves shooting phase, turn 5, and Commander Rely came under a hail of fire from the Land Speeder, the Storm Talon, the Storm Wolf, and long range fire from the Predator Assassin Squadron. He has lost both his drones, but he is still standing on 1 wound. He needed 1 last save, which he made. So disappointing there for the Space Wolves. And in the centre, we have seen a lot of running. The Wolf Guard, they have come piling over the landing pad with a 6-inch run. They are now within 3 inches of the objective. So we have 1 squad of Grey Hunters, another squad of 2 Grey Hunters, the Razorback, and all of the Wolf Guard. It may be quite hard to drive them off of that objective. Meanwhile, the Land Raiders, they gave some fire. This one failed to do anything to the Falcon, but this one absolutely blew both Vipers out of the air. And disappointment for the Longfangs. They did not manage to do any damage to the commander of the Retaliation Cadre and the Crisis team, but Ulrich showed them how. He took aim with his plasma pistol and took a wound off of the nearest Riptide. He may well try to charge. Let's see. Going into Space Wolf assault phase, turn 5. End of Space Wolves assault phase, turn 5, and Commander Rely can only look on in dismay as the Thunderwolves charge the Hammerhead beneath him and tear it to pieces. And the Eldar presence is gone as well. This squad of Grey Hunters easily overcame the Lone Guardian, and the Assault Marines cut down the last Dire Avenger. And of particular note, this Fenrisian Wolf leapt at the damaged hovering Viper and tore it from the air. Excellent effort from him. Meanwhile, Arjak easily smashed the Skyray to pieces with his Thunderhammer, and the Terminators, they stomped all over the last Fire Warrior. All the way down, we have a combat. The Dreadnought survives. He has taken another whole point of damage, but he also caused another wound to the Taunar suit. It is on 1 wound. So we could see the mighty battlesuit fall. And finally, all the way over here, The broadside finally managed to smash the last blood claw down, and the one disappointment from the Space Wolves in the centre was Ulrich the Slayer. He braved the overwatch of the Riptide and was wounded by its iron accelerator for his trouble, but unfortunately he could not make it up the rock face and he failed his charge against the Tau battlesuit. And that brings Space Wolves turn 5 to a close. They are still holding the central objective. They're strongly holding the one down this end of the field. They have given up on the one at the other end. Will the Tau be able to wrest any objectives back from the Space Wolves? We shall see going into Tau and Eldar turn 5. End of Tau and Eldar movement phase turn 5, and as this Barracuda goes hunting the skies, he's got his sights set on this Storm Talon, and the Tiger Shark is cruising over, but he really wants to use his burst cannon to add to the fire that is going to be dropped on these Space Wolves in the centre, and it will be formidable. There is another Barracuda flying over with burst cannon, and the Eldar are coming into the attack as well. We have 2 Wave Serpents with their bright lances. They're going to try and take out the Razorback, and the Shining Spears. They are preparing for a final glorious charge. The Tetras have moved up. Both XV-104 Riptides are moving up, as is the swarm of Remoras. This gully is going to be filled with a hellstorm of fire. The Retaliation Cadre Commander, he's also ordered his 2 remaining Crisis Suits to add their fire there, and even Aunshi, Dark Strider and the Fireblade, they are advancing. They are supported by very few remaining Fire Warriors and 1 Devilfish, and the XV-88 prepares to give fire. He has a huge range. He is going to try to knock out something from all the way back there. Meanwhile, this Falcon, it has held position. It did not jinx, so it is ready to add its fire as well. This is going down to the wire. The Tau need to get these Space Wolves off of this objective so that it can be seized by either the Shining Spears or the 2 Riptides, who have both Nova charged their thrusters. They are ready to leap in. We shall see. Once again, the Spirit Seer has not disembarked. There are no more Warlocks, so we will not be having a psychic phase. We are going straight into Tau and Eldar shooting phase, turn 5. End of Tau and Eldar shooting phase, turn 5, and hell was unleashed in the gully. The Razorback is gone. All of the Wolf Guard have been cut down by a huge volley from the Remora stealth drones, and there are very few Grey Hunters left. Only 3, and the Shining Spears have their eyes on them as the XV-104s prepare to thrust their way onto the objective as well. It's all happening in the centre. The Tau are dominant up at this objective. They are holding it, and they have given up all hope of trying to take the objective from the Blood Claws down here. Rely is standing there, very worried. The Hammerhead did nothing as it targeted a Land Raider, and this Barracuda could not do any damage to the Storm Talon in its dogfight. The other 2 Tau flyers added their burst cannon fire from the swivelling turrets, and more Marines fell, but this is the crucial phase. The Shining Spears, they must charge in and overrun the last 3 Grey Hunters. Let's see if they can do it going into Tau and Eldar assault phase, turn 5. End of Tau and Eldar assault phase, turn 5, and the Shining Spears have got the job done. They have zipped in over these barricades, and they mercilessly rode down the 3 surviving Grey Hunters. They have taken the central objective as the 2 Riptides have jet-packed onto this landing pad. They're overlooking the centre of the field now. But in the other combat, this Dreadnought, he has got the job done. Seeing Bjorn squashed obviously motivated him, and he took the final wound off of the Tau and Ar Supremacy armour. It has collapsed, and this Dreadnought, he stands triumphant. And we've had an epic game. At the end of game turn 5, we are bringing this game to a close. The final score is 2 objectives to the Tau. They very aggressively used the optimised stealth cadre and the retaliation cadre to seize the objective that was held by the Imperial Guard, and it was a very, very close run thing in the centre, but the Eldar and Tau alliance is holding the central objective. Meanwhile, the Space Wolves, they still have a good amount of strength down this end of the battlefield, and they, with the aid of the pure brutality of the Thunderwolves, are firmly in control of this objective. So it is 2-1 at the end of the game, and we have seen many, many epic characters go down. Ragnar, Blackmane, Najal Stormcaller and Bjorn the Fell-Handed, they have all lost their lives on this battlefield, but Ulrich the Slayer, he remains, he is still standing strong. It has been an absolute slaughter. We're not sure how many points have been lost, but it is thousands and thousands and thousands, and we love these apocalypse games when they are this close. We hope you've enjoyed it, Jordan. Have you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, I've enjoyed it immensely. It's a long way to come to lose, but it's been worth every mile of the 700 mile round trip, so yeah, it's really been fantastic.
Fair enough, mate. We massively appreciate you coming. Yeah, is there anything you would have done differently?
I would probably bring a little bit more super heavies maybe.
Yeah.
But as much as I don't like using the Thunderwolves, I think they're a bit of a silly idea. They've done unbelievable well.
They are brutal, and it's so hard to kill, and they do so much damage. Yes, well, they certainly did the business down this end on this objective. The Eldar were absolutely overrun and ended up fleeing for their lives to the support of the Tau flyers and battlesuits. The Tau came in, great strength, up one end. Perhaps they could have allocated some of that down the other end of the field, but against the Thunderwolves, not even sure that would have got the job done. In the centre, so close, but there are a lot of Tau units now moving up to support the Eldar, and the Spirit Seer looks on from his Wave Serpent as well. This has been an epic game. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to our channel, and we will keep producing as many Warhammer 40,000 battle reports as we can. See ya!